What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Will Torey Lovullo's bullpen management once again lead to the Dbacks missing out on the postseason?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist, and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we are going to be discussing Torey Lovullo, the Dbacks squandering their opportunities in this series finale against the Rays, and we'll talk more about we'll talk about the squandered opportunities in the series against the Rays, and then we'll talk more about the series finale as well. We'll talk about if the Dbacks can get their revenge against the Atlanta Braves in segment number 2, and then of course it's Friday, so we'll wrap up today's podcast with a little mailbag Friday for you guys. So jam-packed pod as always, but first I want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. We are trying to go live Sunday through Thursday after Dbacks games, like we're doing today. So if you're listening live, please drop a comment in the YouTube section. I want this to be an interactive show. So please drop comments, say something, put a question. I'll try to read your comments live on air. And if you guys want to be a part of the show, follow me on Twitter so you can see when I go live, because I tweet it out at CareerThomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle, or hit that bell notification on YouTube so you get notified when I go live. But now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. All right, back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. And now let's discuss Dbacks versus Rays, because this was a game. I want to first talk about the finale, because this was a game where the Dbacks started hot. They tried to hold on, cling on to the lead, and instead they just fizzled out. This was a hot start by the Dbacks where they just fizzled out in the series finale. And I think the biggest narrative leaving this game, the biggest takeaway people have, is Torey Lovullo's bullpen management. Sorry, guys, it's a little late here. And will his bullpen management lead to another, potential Dbacks missing out on the postseason? Because I don't want to put the whole blame chart on last year Dbacks missing out on Torey Lovullo's bullpen management, but I think it was a big cause of it, especially early in the season. I think there were more games they could point to, especially that game with Scott McGough coming up to try and win the game for the Dbacks, right? We saw another situation like that this year, when there was already a situation in 2024 where Torey Lovullo burned through all his bench players early in the game, and then we had to have our pitcher come up in a game-winning situation. You would think your manager would learn from that instance and say, in a future game, let me not run through my entire bench before the 9th inning. And instead, he did it again in a game earlier this season, and we had to have Ryan Nelson come up to the plate and hit. Thankfully, Ryan Nelson came through, but it's how do we keep running into situations where Torey Lovullo continues to make the wrong decision with the bullpen? I was okay with the Ryan Nelson coming out in the 7th inning. Once Jalen Beeks left with that, cautionary injury, I was okay with Ryan Nelson coming out in the 7th. We were already short-staffed with the bullpen, right? A lot of guys weren't going to pitch tonight after extra innings last night. So I understood the mentality of, let's get Ryan Nelson in the 7th. Okay, he looked good. We put him out there in the 8th. He had a great 8th inning, struck out 3 batters, I believe. So it's I was fine with Nelson going out there in the 7th and 8th. But at some point, you have to realize you can't throw Ryan Nelson out there for a 3rd inning in a save opportunity. At that moment, That's when you should have went to Shelby Miller. I don't understand why you would trust Ryan Nelson for a third consecutive inning in a save situation, especially considering Ryan Nelson hasn't pitched since April 18th. It was not the moment for you to put that massive workload on Ryan Nelson in that situation. You got through those 2 innings. You got through the 8th inning unscathed. I think that's when you take your victory and you say, now let me go to Shelby Miller in this high leverage situation. I've tried to use him as a closer already this season. So let me use Shelby Miller tonight. And instead, you just had him waiting in the wings in the bullpen until it was too late by Ryan Nelson. And I just don't understand why Torey Lovullo waited so long, why we couldn't use Shelby Miller to begin the 9th inning. Like, why did we stick so long with Ryan Nelson? Once you got the 2 clean innings out of him, we should have considered that a victory lap and then went with Shelby Miller. Justin Martinez, I kind of get why we didn't use him coming off the arm fatigue. He pitched yesterday, but still, I would have liked to see Justin Martinez if he was available, but I'm not sure if he was. This was a game where the D-backs started off hot. You came out the gates. You scored 3 runs in the first 2 innings off Drew Rasmussen, who we talked a lot about on yesterday's podcast, because entering today's game, 2 earned runs all season. He's been fantastic. And so you had the offense cooking early. Corbin Burnes retired the first 9 batters he faced. The cutter was looking immaculate. The swing and miss stuff was there. Corbin Burnes on the night had 8 strikeouts. So he was finally getting that swing and miss stuff with his cutter. But as the game went on, things start to unravel for the D-backs, because essentially after that Tim Tawa home run in the 5th inning, the momentum completely shifted in this game. I do want to shout out Tim Tawa because he's been very good so far for the D-backs since being called up. I believe he leads all rookies in home runs. He already has 4 home runs on the season, so he's been solid for Arizona. But after his home run, the momentum shifted in this game. Burnes started walking guys in the 5th and then really seemed to unravel in the 6th. Struggled to find the strike zone. It was borderline a meltdown situation. We didn't exactly get there, but it felt like if Torey Lovullo didn't go to Beeks in that moment, it would have been a meltdown situation. So actually happy Torey Lovullo went to Jalen Beeks in that moment. But you had Corbin Burnes starting to unravel. The offense did nothing after that Tim Tawa home run. They had like 1 hit, I think, after, maybe 2 hits after that Tawa home run. The defense had 3 errors on the night. Like, essentially, after the 5th inning, the D-backs went into protect the lead mode, and they just started to play sloppy baseball from then on. And the D-back just kind of fell apart. Burnes fell apart in the middle innings. Defense stopped making plays. Offense went quiet. And then Torey Lovullo mismanaged another bullpen. You look at this series, and it's all squandered opportunities. The D-backs should have won this series against the Tampa Bay Rays. 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position in game 2. You had Geraldo Perdomo at the plate, ground into a double play in extra innings. Tonight, 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Domo seems to have gone cold. 0 for 4 tonight. I think he's 1 for like his last 22. Like, it's a struggle right now for the D-backs. And it's kind of perpetuating the whole team. The lineup outside of like Corbin Carroll and Pavin Smith and Josh Naylor, very up and down performances from everyone. We know those righties in the middle of the lineup, the Gurriels, the Suarez's, struggling. I'm fine with Moreno in the middle of those two, but just put Moreno as the number 5 hitter, because I think he's the best right-hand bat we have right now. And so I would much rather have the 4 lefties that are crushing at the top and then another good righty in Moreno, because I think he would be much better. I think it'd be much better if he batted behind a Josh Naylor instead of being behind the Gurriels and the Suarez's, who are easy outs right now for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So this was a series with squandered opportunities. D-backs didn't play well. You just got to write it off. Get back on your horse, whatever the cliches are. Pick yourself up, whatever you want to say, whatever the cliche is, because next up you face the Atlanta Braves. By record, they've been average this season, but they're still supremely talented, and we'll discuss why that is a revenge series for the Arizona Diamondbacks in segment number 2. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Supply House because get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster programs offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Don't forget, if you're watching this live, feel free to drop a comment, a question in the little comment section, and we'll try to read it live on air. But now let's get into the podcast and discuss why this next series against the Atlanta Braves is a huge revenge series for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I say it's a revenge series not just because of the shenanigans that we saw in the season finale last year, of course, doubleheader, Braves versus Mets, where whoever won that first game was just going to sit everybody in the second game. That's exactly what we saw. It was the Dbacks' own fault for not making the postseason last year. So I don't want to, I want to be accountable. The Dbacks are the reason why they missed out on the playoffs last year. So I say this is a revenge series, not for the shenanigans in the season finale, but for the early season sweep, that April sweep that we had against the Braves last year. Because it wasn't just the fact that the D-backs got swept by Atlanta last year. It was how the D-backs got swept by Atlanta last year. Because if you remember, the D-backs had massive leads in the first two games of that series. They had a 5-2 lead in game one. And then in game two, they had both a 6-0 lead after the first and an 8-2 lead later on in that game. And if the D-backs just win one of those two games, the D-backs are in the postseason. And I believe it's like the Atlanta Braves on the outside looking in, but I could be wrong there. But either way, if the D-backs just win one game against the Atlanta Braves in that April series last year, they're in the postseason. And you look back at this series and it's like the D-backs, like this Rays series, was squandering games, huge leads early in those games, game one, game two, and they just squandered those games. And so this is a revenge series for the D-backs, not for the shenanigans in that season finale, but for that early season sweep that ultimately set back the D-backs for the rest of 2024. And there's a couple of players that I really want to highlight that are looking to get their revenge against Atlanta in this series. The first guy is the player who is the MVP of the National League today, Corbin Carroll. Because last year against the Braves, Carroll was not that good in that April series. He was 4 for 24 with a 1 double, really struggled offensively as the D-backs got swept. And so far in 2025, he looks like the MVP. He looks like Ronald Acuna 2.0, and he wants to show off against Atlanta. Because I was actually comparing Corbin Carroll's season this year through the first 24 games to Ronald Acuna's MVP season through the first 24 games. And I got to say, Corbin Carroll, the start he's off to right now, I believe it's better than Acuna's MVP season through the first 24 games. Again, you look at home runs. Carroll's got 9 home runs. Acuna at the time only had 3. Carroll, before today's game, a 1097 OPS. Acuna through the first 24, a 988 OPS. You look at WRC plus. Corbin Carroll, 195. Acuna, 170. I saw something insane today. Let's see if I could actually find it real quick as we're doing this live on air. But I think it was it MLB on Twitter? I think they said Corbin Carroll is on pace. I actually found it. Before today's game, Corbin Carroll was on pace for 122 extra base hits and 61 home runs. His 70 total bases leads MLB. And so when you're comparing Corbin Carroll's start through the first 24 games of 2025 to Ronald Acuña's first 24 games of 2023, Corbin Carroll looks way better. The pace he's on is better than Acuña's. I mean, Acuña had 41 home runs in 2023. I mean, Carroll's on pace for 61. I don't think he's going to hit that. But do I think 41 is in the realm for Corbin Carroll? I definitely think it is. The biggest difference between those two guys when looking at the stats is the speed, because I think Acuña through the first 24 games already had double-digit steals. Corbin Carroll only has 4. But speed is an area that's easy to make up. You just get Corbin Carroll on base, let him be a little bit more aggressive. He can have a couple games where he has multiple steals. Like, it's easy to make up the speed part. And so when looking at Carroll's season so far to Acuña's season through the first 24 games, you can say Corbin Carroll is on a better pace right now than Acuña's MVP season, which I think is really cool to see. So want to see Corbin Carroll finish with better numbers than Acuña's MVP season. Another guy that is looking for revenge, Brandon Pfaadt, because in that April series last year, Pfaadt had a 5 earned run performance, and it was a very Pfaadt start because he gave up 5 earned runs, yes, but through 5 2/3 innings, he only allowed 2 earned runs, and then he gave up a 3-run home run. So for Pfaadt, he wants to show why I keep saying he's the best D-backs pitcher in 2025. He's looked fantastic. He's given a borderline quality start every time he's gone out there. He's been very cool, calm, collected. Like, it's a phrase that the new kids say, but Brandon Pfaadt just has that aura right now. And I trust him more than any other pitcher when he's on the mound. So I want to see Brandon Pfaadt get that revenge in this series. And the other guy who needs to get some revenge is Zach Gallen, because Zach Gallen last year against the Atlanta Braves had a start where he had a very Brandon Pfaadt type start. 5.1 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, and then he gave up a 3-run home run as well. And so Zach Gallen also looking for some revenge. And for both Gallen and Pfaadt, the Braves, despite their record, still have a loaded lineup. So this is going to be a great litmus test for Brandon Pfaadt's development in 2025 and for Zach Gallen's confidence, getting him back on track, because we know he's been shaky all season. He's dealt with command issues, but if Zach Gallen can go out there and mow down the Braves lineup and have a good quality start, I think that will do a lot to restoring his confidence for the rest of the season. So this is a big revenge series for the D-backs, not just for the shenanigans and last year's season finale, but also for that early season sweep. Look at Corbin Carroll, who struggled in that April series to step up, already the MVP of the National League if it ended today. Brandon Pfaadt, the D-backs ace, look for him to get revenge. And Zach Gallen, the guy who's been shaky this year, but has historically been the D-backs ace the last few years, he wants to get back on track, and doing it against that loaded Braves lineup is a great way for Brandon Pfaadt and Zach Gallen to continue to build upon their confidence. Now we'll answer some listener submitted questions on this Mailbag Friday in segment number 3. But hey, I first want to talk to you guys about Upwork, because scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. I'm a graphic designer myself. I'm a freelancer. I've definitely gone on Upwork to look for jobs. And if you want to find a talented designer like me, go to Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's discuss and answer some listener submitted questions. The first one is by Locked on Reds, and he says, who will have more home runs this season, Eugenio Suarez or Corbin Carroll? Not surprised to see Locked on Reds post this question, but if you have to ask between those two players, I'm not sure if you're watching the D-backs, sir. Love Jeff Carr at Locked on Reds. Eugenio before the season. Again, before the season started, I probably would have picked Eugenio because I predicted a 500 slug for Eugenio entering the year. I said he was going to have his best season since like 2019. And through the first like 4 or 5 games of the year, I look dead on. I look like the smartest baseball host in the Locked On network. I was like, man, I really hit the nail on the head with Eugenio. And since like the first 4 games of the season, he's been one of the worst players in Major League Baseball offensively. But again, we've seen this from Eugenio before. So you just got to get through the first 3 months of the season. And those last 3 months, he's going to play like he's Babe Ruth. So if I have to pick who's going to finish with more home runs, I still think Eugenio, who has 6, can still finish with 25 to 30 home runs. Like, he can get hot. We've seen him get on a heater. He still connects every other day with a long ball, so I wouldn't be surprised. But I have to go with Corbin Carroll right now, who leads the league, currently the NL in home runs, and just seems like he has a power swing right now. Just feels like the way he's fixed his swing this offseason, it just feels like the barrel always connects to the ball, and the ball just flies off his bat. He's the weirdest player to watch hit the ball because he's the one guy with his swing, with the sound of the bat. I never think the ball is going to go that far. It always looks like a lazy fly ball. It never sounds that loud. And then you watch it and you're like, how did that go 430 feet? How is that 107 off the bat? So much power in that small frame. And I think this is the year where he utilizes all that power. Because as we've discussed, the first half of 23, he had like 17 home runs. The second half of last year, he had like 18. Like, you take the first half of 23, the second half of 24, it's a 35 home run season. So is it insane for Corbin Carroll to hit 35, even potentially 40 home runs like Ronald Acuna in his MVP season? I don't think so at all. So if I had to pick which D-back player between Eugenio and Corbin Carroll, who's going to hit more home runs this season, I think the answer right now is clearly the man who's leading the NL in home runs right now in Corbin Carroll. Pablo Sanchez-HJ5FB said, when do you expect Jordan Lawler to be called up, and what's his ceiling? A 2-pronged question by Pablo Sanchez. For Jordan Lawler, when do I expect him to be called up? It's a multifaceted question. It's a loaded question because if you tell me Ketel Marte gets moved to the 60-day injured list and is going to be out, through July, through August, then Jordan Lawler is going to be called up like tomorrow. Because if you're telling me there's everyday opportunity on the major league level at second base, at shortstop, at third base, Jordan Lawler will be called up. Like, that's his path to being an everyday D-back right now. There has to be injury. Until then, I don't see the D-backs calling up Lawler, at least in the first half of the season. The only way I see Lawler get called up in the first half of the season is A, due to injury with someone in the infield, or B, kind of what we're seeing right now, where the right-handed bats for the D-backs are just so bad. If Gurriel and Eugenio are batting 100 and Moreno never gets going and it's like there's no spark from your right-handed hitters, the D-backs might be forced to hand. The D-backs might have to force their hand. Or I guess Jordan Lawler would force the hand of the D-backs with the way he's playing in AAA right now, putting up superstar numbers, playing great defense. Like, if the offense continues to struggle from the righties, Jordan Lawler continues to crush in the minor leagues, like, it might force the hand of the D-backs to just call up Lawler. But as of right now, the D-backs are content with Lawler getting all the everyday opportunities in AAA. Ketel Marte sounds like he'll be back in early May. So as it stands right now, I won't expect Lawler to be called up anytime soon. But after the trade deadline, I do think we are alive for Jordan Lawler time. I don't think he'll spend the whole season in minor leagues. I do think at some point this year, Jordan Lawler will be called up. I just won't expect it in the first half. But come second half of the season, I could see the D-backs saying, let's get an infusion of young talent. Let's get a little spark, a little catalyst to help us push through to the postseason. So I would say second half is the best time to see Jordan Lawler. And if you want to ask about his ceiling, who do I think Jordan Lawler can be? You guys tell me if you think this is a good comp, but I think Jordan Lawler's ceiling, because I don't think Jordan Lawler is like a Hall of Fame talent, but I do think he's going to be like a consistent, all-star level player. I think he's going to be like Carlos Correa. Correa was a stud shortstop, defensively elite, middle of the order bat for the Houston Astros. But again, you look at the numbers, they're not insane. He basically averaged like 24 home runs a season for his career, 270 average, 820 OPS. Like, if you tell me Jordan Lawler is a great defensive player, hitting 20-plus home runs every year, middle to top of the order bat, 800-plus OPS for his career, in his best seasons, he's around a 900 OPS guy. Like, I would definitely take that from Jordan Lawler. Carlos Correa is a 3-time All-Star, one-time finished top 10 in MVP voting when he finished 5th in 2021. Like, that is the kind of, career that I think Jordan Lawler could have. A couple All-Stars, maybe one great season where he gets a couple MVP votes in. I think that would be a fantastic career for Jordan Lawler and something we would be happy about as a D-backs fan. So I think that's the ceiling for Jordan Lawler. A little Carlos Correa would be my comp. And then final question from D-backs Lover 222. He said, if you can fix one thing about the D-backs right now, what would it be? Before the game, I would have said if all the starters in the rotation, if their go-to pitch could have perfect command, that's what I would have said, because, of course, Corbin Burns this season, his go-to pitch, the cutter, he's really struggled. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, their fastballs, they've really struggled. So I would have said before the game, the go-to pitch, give it good command for every starter in the rotation. But after the game, I'm now going to say bullpen management, because it's been an issue for Torey Lovullo for years. We've always had, we've never been able to figure out the closer problem. And before, it was a talent issue. But there's just been so many times over the last few years when we've seen, when we've had the bad relievers, there would just be so many games where they came in high leverage moments where it's like, why is Miguel Castro? Why is Scott McGovern coming in the game right now? Why is that guy closing instead of Justin Martinez? It's like there were just so many instances over the last few years where there was just bad bullpen management by Torey Lovullo. Sometimes he's, pulling guys early from the game. Sometimes he's keeping guys in too long. Sometimes he's too obsessed with the platoon splits. Like, Torey Lovullo is a great player manager in terms of managing the emotions and the personalities of guys in the locker room. But as an in-game manager, I've never really been a fan of Torey Lovullo. And I think tonight we saw him struggle and hurt the D-backs in the series finale against the Tampa Bay Rays. So hopefully it gets better in the next series against the Atlanta Braves. That's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back next week for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.